how they harnessed an arena of persecution into a platform of opportunity. Don't be afraid of persecution. Don't be afraid of opposition. I've had a handful of people in my life who can't stand the sight of me, and they really like to go after me. And I have a very good friend in Egypt. His name is Maher. He's a brilliant guy, a veteran psychiatrist. He heads up our Middle Eastern team. And he looked at me across the table one day and he said, "My brother, why are you so surprised? Why are you so surprised? I am surprised that they have not been hitting you earlier, because you are dismantling their structures." Said, "You are an apologist. Why are you surprised? The winds will always be there. The moment you want to build something for God, you can be sure there will somebody who will want to take it down. You can be sure. It happened to our Lord, it happened to Paul, it happened to the early disciples, and even God looked at Peter and he said, "You know what, Peter? When you were young, you went wherever you wanted to go. When you get old, you will go to places you do not want to go." Peter did not realize Jesus was talking about the manner of death. He was going to die. Don't be afraid of persecution. Be surprised if you don't have persecution. When you are doing something for the glory of God, the enemy will try to sift you. The greater your potential, the greater he will try to break you, to discourage you. He is the doubter. He is the accuser. He is the discourager. Don't ever lose heart. When I had a strong back, I used to be a runner. I tried my best at sprinting. I didn't have the hips to move as fast, so I became a long-distance runner. And when you're running long distances, the most difficult part of the race is when you're at the halfway point. You've given it your best. You're needing that oxygen. And I remember one year in Sydney, Australia. I always get up early in the morning, and this was about 5:30 or 6, I think it was there in the morning, and I stepped out of my hotel to go across. In those days, we used to go across to these computer cafes so we could plug the computer in and write. So I'd taken my computer, and all of a sudden I saw yellow tape and police officers barricading that whole road. I said, "I'm trying to get across there." He said, "You can't right now." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Just move back, just move back." So I moved back, and all of a sudden I heard the pounding of feet, heavy pounding of feet. And I saw this Kenyan athlete coming down the road. It was a Sydney marathon going on. That guy was running like a horse. It was about the 18-mile mark. I couldn't have run the first mile at that speed. Galloping across, steady, rhythmic breathing, body without an ounce of fat, just like mine, running across the road there. Tremendous. And I watched him. I said, "How on earth do you become a runner like this?" You know how they become runners like that in Kenya? Not running on flat roads, not running on police barricaded. It's up the hills and down the hills and into the valleys and all through the ragged, till that body knows how to handle even the steep climb. And the rest of the guys are so far away. This guy is running like the whole thing is a piece of cake. Run for God. Train for God. Study when you have the opportunity. Memorize the scriptures. Regurgitate the scriptures. Discipline the soul for the long distance. Don't give up at the halfway point. Keep running. Keep running. And you will breast the tape. And they saw that this whole idea of persecution and all the challenge that persecution was bringing to them, they took it and leveraged it into a platform of opportunity. They leveraged it into a platform of opportunity. You know, by God's grace, I've actually led a very healthy life. As I told you before, I don't know when I last had a cold and a cough. I cannot remember. I don't think I've ever had the flu. I just keep going. And my mother used to say, I know why you're like this. It's because of all the junk food you ate on the side of the road when you were a kid. All the bugs gave up on trying to win you over. But I have had two great weaknesses: a broken back and a weak voice. When I was in my 20s studying, a doctor looked into my vocal cords and he said, your vocal cords are not designed for professional use. You better give up the idea of becoming a speaker. So next day I went to school and I was walking around, and the president of the institution, Dr. Stuart Beamer, he said, Ravi, I'm not used to looking at you so downcast. What's the problem? I said, sir, I had some bad news. He said, really? He said, come on up to my office. I said, the bad news is I've been told my vocal cords are not made for professional use. I'm not to think of ever becoming a speaker. He said, who told you that? I said, well, I went to see some doctor on this matter. He said, I don't believe it. So I don't believe it. He said, I'm going to send you to the best ENT man in the country. Go and see him. It's a long story. You know what? I came this close to changing my calling. But then you find out this, and I want you to hear me. A job is something you choose. A calling is something for which you are chosen.